So we'll study a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, chapter 6, verse 4. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Prabhuda Karma Daivena Trayo Vimshatiko Gana Prerito Janayat Svabhir Matrabhiradhi Purusham. Translation: when the 23 elements were awakened through the action, through the creative power of the Lord, and that they unite together, they produce the gigantic universal form. Purport: the Viratrupa is the universal form of the Lord. It appears through His will. After the manifestation of the elements for the material creation, this form is a material manifestation. It is different from the eternal forms of the Lord, which are found in His spiritual abode beyond the material creation. The universal form. Srila Prabhupada explains that when we do not have the qualification to meditate on the personal form of the Supreme Lord, then we must meditate on the universal form. And we see that most religions, the most known, they meditate on this form. When they represent God, they represent Him as a beautiful flower, a beautiful tree, a rainbow, a beautiful landscape, etc., etc. But never under a personal conception. Because the personal conception is difficult to accept. Because it cannot be accepted when we have too many material desires and we search for opulence. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. He says the firm conviction to serve the Lord with devotion does not take birth in the heart of persons who have too many material desires. We're searching for material pleasure and opulence. So, those who believe really that they are this body, that they are really persuaded they are this body, naturally, they are inclined to pleasure. It's natural. When we think that we are the soul, then we're inclined to search for this relationship with God. We cannot be in one camp or the other. It's not possible. This is why, according to the progress that we made in our previous lives, then we have this inclination for pleasure or for detachment, for the love of the objects of this world, or for the love for Krishna. It is an evolution of the consciousness. But we are obliged to have desires. Srila Prabhupada explains that we cannot kill the desire because it is proper to the soul. When the soul is liberated, the soul desires to be with Krishna. Why? Because the soul nourishes itself with love of God. That's the food, nourishment for the soul. When the soul is far from Krishna, then she is obliged to nourish her oneself with love. So it will look for this love through relationships of this world. But we cannot live without love. This is why the desires are there. We cannot do any other way. There will always be desires. So we could ask ourselves, what do we do when we are not a self-realized soul, and that desires come? Because when we are not a self-realized soul, that means that these desires can be material, and when they are material, they will carry us away, and they will stop us finally to realize ourselves. It is a reality, because in fact what happens when we're frustrated because we do not find a solution to associate with Krishna, we don't have the possibility because we don't have the capacity, then material desires come and say, oh, if I had this, I would be happy, but it's false. Nobody's happy with these desires. If you look people in this world, they all suffer. Myself, I meet many people, they think they are happy, but when they speak to you, it's not so simple. They start to change their face, reveal their heart. It's not easy. But still, when you see them, they look to be so much happy. But so how is this happening? Because this determination must come at one point. At one point in our life, we understand, I have to stop. And this, when we desire to stop, the Lord helps us. Krishna helps us. He gives us a strength, faith. He gives us the intelligence. And then from there, even when desires come, we can understand the nature of these desires, that they are not good for us. For example, when we are a thief, myself, I was a thief when I was young. I loved to steal. It became really something that I could not live without. I don't know why. I was super young. I was maybe 11 years old. I was going in the shops and I had a double pocket in my coat, and every day I was stealing. This is what happens when we are taking birth with a bad nature. And the day when I was caught, and then automatically I stopped to steal in the shops. But to fight against a bad tendency is difficult. It's extremely difficult. But when we receive the intelligence of the Supreme Lord, then this tendency, even if it comes to take us, we can not respond to it because we receive the support that is superior. And then from there, what happens? We understand, we realize that the nature of the bad desire, before we didn't want. We thought that it was good, that it had a substance, and that it could make us happy. But then as soon as their mercy is there, then we realize the nature of this desire and how much it is harming us, and that it's stopping us to develop love of God. And from there, we stop meditating upon it. Because if we meditate upon it, it grows. It grows, it grows. And then at some point, with Krishna, we are completely satiated. We think we're not happy. We think everything we do is bad. Everything becomes a weight. Whereas around us, there are people who are completely happy in this situation. Why? Because our meditation is not properly placed. Just like Krishna says, if we cultivate the material desires, we lose our faith, our determination, and from there we suffer. Whereas we should be happy. And this is something, it is something that is disappointing, that is sad. We should take advantage of devotional service. If we look closely, we feast every day. Nobody eats like we eat. It's the feast every day. Nobody eats like that. We do what we want to do. It's to serve Krishna. It's super simple as a life. We don't have to, put anything on our shoulders. Krishna, he carries everything. What we do as a service, it's all small compared to what we do when we work outside. Those who worked outside, they know what it is. It's not easy. You're obliged to wake up in the morning also. You're obliged to go work. And sometimes the boss, it's not so simple. Myself, I worked, for example. I didn't work a lot in my life. I didn't have this capacity to be able to work. But the little that I worked, they were experiences. Really not easy. When we find ourselves with persons that have really low consciousness, it's not easy. And there's a lot of envy between one and the other. People, they find themselves living together, working together, whereas they don't want to be together. And they're simply, they just have the money that connects them together, and it's really not easy. It's really, they're experiences that are extremely hard. And the boss, he exploits you. When you complain, you are fired. Here, if you complain, we listen to you. Okay, we'll do something, we'll do this, we'll do that. There's a committee to solve everything. No, don't worry, we'll do this. But outside, you're fired, you have no choice, you lower your head. But unfortunately, when material desires are there, you prefer to work with like a stick on your head instead of serving the Lord. And it's a reality. Because you think that the service to the Lord because of your material desire makes you suffer. It becomes a suffering. Whereas working like an ass is pleasing. And it is a reality. Srila Prabhupada, he takes this example. An example that is a little hard, but it's a reality. He says, the man, he works like an ass, hard. And when he comes home, she has, instead of welcoming him nicely, she hits him. Everything he wants is to unite with her. He works hard for this, and the night when he wants to unite with her, the woman, she pouts him. This is the reality of this world. Prabhupada explains this. We work so hard, and the worst after, since they're sinful activities, because nothing is connected to the Suprema, and even also you must suffer in your next life. So, when Krishna gives intelligence, we can understand this. It's not fanaticism. It's not bad. Myself, for example, I was speaking with a person, I stayed a certain time. It doesn't have anything to do with God, but still, we speak. We're not fanatics, but we understand the law of action. We understand we are the soul. So, we don't do whatever. In the same way that there are laws of the state, there are laws of God. So we must accept when by acting in a certain way, then gradually love can take birth in our heart. I can say it can awaken, because everything depends upon the situation, everything depends upon our attitude, everything depends on our greed. It is not easy. And all of this comes from what? Of a good association. But the good association, it also has a reverse. If the attitude is not good, it has another side. Then it will make it happen that within us, the Lord will not be happy with us. Because here we are connected with His devotees. So when we don't act properly with His devotees, then the Lord is not satisfied. When He is not satisfied, then He retires to allow for the living entity to have a life without the devotees, without Him. And we come back, we become a materialist again. Krishna doesn't force anybody, He reciprocates. Yatamam prapadyante. Krishna reciprocates. He doesn't intervene. Simply, He reciprocates with our attitude. So, when we are a devotee and we suffer and we have problems within us, it's not the others that we have to hit. We have this tendency, that's true, when we suffer, to hit upon others. That person I don't like, but it just comes from a problem within. It's not that we don't like people. It's because due to this internal difficulty, we start to transpose this difficulty on a certain person, this frustration. For example, racism, all these things that exist, this aversion of living entities or this attraction, it comes simply from this passion within us and this ignorance. So when we suffer, then we're always searching for persons to put this frustration on them. But it's not like that we will solve the problem of our life and develop love. To the contrary. So we should always, but it's not easy, and it is not made to destroy us, but we should look within us and not look simply with a vision without understanding what is happening. We must look through scriptures. And if we study, then we find solutions. And automatically, we will understand that we must change our nature, our approach. It is really important. And from there, gradually, we will be able to progress. It's not possible otherwise. People who stay simply, just like the controllers of their existence, and who don't take the support of mercy, they cannot progress. They find themselves in a situation where, because of the security of previous lives, of their pious activities, but they cannot progress. Our goal is to solve the problem within and to liberate ourselves and to make us see something that is more beautiful. And this is what is important. This is why we must have this introspection. We must be able to see the Lord everywhere. Why we describe the universal form? It is even for us to allow us to see the Lord in everything. We must not simply walk in the path and say, oh, this park is nice. But we should remember the Supreme Lord through the creation. This is a devotee. A devotee, he sees Krishna everywhere. So if we're not able to see the form of Krishna, of course we have the deity here, but also we can see the Lord in His creation. When someone has a quality, we must see that it is an opulence of the Lord. We must not be envious, but we must tell ourselves, oh, all this is coming from the Supreme Lord. And even when we have a good attitude, a good quality, we should see it like an opulence of the Supreme Lord. It belongs to Him. It is His. It's not ours. Often, when we denigrate a person, it's because we feel superior. Otherwise, we could not denigrate that person. If we would see that person greater than us, we would take shelter in her or his. It is a principle. Everyone wants a hero. Everyone needs to have a form of worship. It is something that is important because we're made to worship the Supreme Lord. However, when we are cut from this relationship with the Lord, we have a tendency to become proud. Even though we're full of faults, we think that we're perfect. And we start, finally, to denigrate others and not see their qualities. But when we are connected to something that is superior, that is so great, we see naturally our minuteness. That's what we call humility. And in this reflection of being observed by the Lord, then we see the qualities in others. This is why the fact of seeing the qualities and not seeing the faults, it is something that is really important because it brings us closer to the truth. We should not be harsh. Well, it is difficult, but we must work on ourselves. Myself, I know, the first, I have the impression, when I open my mouth, that I always say bad things, that I hurt people, etc., etc. But it doesn't mean that I stay upon this like I am super. I lament often. Every day I lament myself. Every day I speak to the Lord and I say, I'm such a bad person. I'm so fallen. I'm useless. And everything that I do, instead of helping people, then it puts them apart from your mercy. It's a reality. That's what I think about myself. But because of this, I'm able to see the qualities in others. I don't do this intentionally, but yesterday when I was with this person, I saw qualities. But of course, the Acharyas explain that the true quality of the soul manifests itself when it serves the Supreme Lord. Because otherwise, There are material qualities. And the material qualities is not permanent. It can in another life be taken away from us if we use it improperly. But when we serve the Supreme Lord, the quality that will emerge from us, it is spiritual. Because it manifests itself due to the connection of the soul with Krishna. And this quality, it allows us to see Krishna. It allows us to serve Krishna. Whereas the material quality allows us to forget Krishna. It's completely different. But the devotee, he feels so fallen that he cannot see that people don't have qualities. But his vision is that he sees devotees everywhere. He sees devotees because it is his nature. Because he cannot be anything else but a devotee, he sees devotees. And he learns from others. And this is what is beautiful. When we learn from others, then we become happy. Because everywhere there are persons who participate to my flourishing, my blossoming, and this is something that is important. This is why this meditation on the presence of the Lord everywhere, in the material world, in the qualities of beings, it must be accepted. It's important. Otherwise, if we develop this vision of seeing demons everywhere, people with qualities, I'll be attracted, this, it won't be easy. We'll find ourselves alone, rejected by everyone. This is not what Krishna wants. Krishna wants us to develop love. It's really important. I remember when I was young, I was living in a temple. And they were really harsh with people from outside. Really harsh. The demons, the meat eaters, and this and that. But when we are close to Krishna, we can understand in which way he helps living entities in different ways. We don't have this mentality. How this mentality comes? Through this internal frustration. We transpose it on others. But what I've noticed is that most often the devotees who think like that, they don't stay devotees for too long. Or they're not happy. Even as devotees, they don't develop love. So, they redevelop desires and attachments. And this is not the goal. The goal is to love. It's to love like Krishna loves us. It's important. When we understand the love that Krishna has for us, it is at a high level of spiritual awakening. That's when we start to perceive our Svarup, our eternal form. Then at this point, we start to feel how Krishna loves us really through the feelings that he has for us. Our feeling for him awakens. But at this point, we can understand that everyone has the right for this love. Because we're all spirit souls. We all have an original form. And Krishna has a relationship with all living entities. So where is this hatred coming from? This fanaticism? I knew this. I've met this. It's only the material being astray materially. This is not Krishna. Well, it can be worse. Some they put bombs on the name of God, and they shoot with the Kalashnikov, and you kill children and anybody. It can come up to that point. This is an illusion. It's just the frustration that we have within us, that we transpose on others. And this is the problem with many religious people, finally. All the wars of religion, when we crucify people, we put them in boxes, we put fire under, or in burning bath, or in sarcophages with nails, or we impale them, or we detach their limbs with horses. But a few centuries ago, this was actuality. If you didn't think like me, I had to take the sin had to come out of you. It's pure madness. This is frustration that is transposed on others in the name of God. It becomes legitimate. But it is not legitimate, because the one who does this, he will pay the consequences of it. It is not legitimate. It is legitimate in his head, but not in the law of God, of the Lord. This is why we must absolutely become loving. We must work on ourselves. It's super important. And gradually, when we can make it, we become more and more satisfied. We don't have any choice. The persons who are around us, they can be harsh, but they are not there for nothing. They are there to make us work. If everyone will be perfect, we will not be in this world. We'll find ourselves surrounded by people who are full of faults. And these faults, they must profit us. They must make us increase our qualities. But for this, we need to meditate on the Lord. If you meditate on your own happiness, then it will not be able to work. If you think that everything exists for you, then it will not work. When you exist for Him, for Krishna, then you have another vision, another approach. You become an instrument. And in fact, a community, it is made for people who accept this mentality. Otherwise, we cannot live together. It is not possible. And at some point, it breaks. That is why we must adopt this quality to see Krishna everywhere. Thank you very much.